Welcome to a brand new spoiler review episode of The Penguin here on Geek Bites, brought to you by the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!
Gentani. Hey! We're having a lot of fun diving into episode 4 here of The Penguin, called Gentani here. This one directed by Helen Shaver, written by John McCutcheon. And this one is basically a Kristen Milioti coming out party as Sofia Falcone. We dive deep into the background of Sofia Falcone. We see how her points of views on everything that happened to her, picking up from where we left off in the last episode, going back in flashbacks to her finding her mom, to her confronting her father about the stuff that happened with her mom, her relationship with Alberto, and then what happens at the end when she basically pulls a Michael Corleone and kills all the family so she can be in control. So a massive, of course, I know Michael Corleone killed the 5 families. I get that, but you know what I'm getting at. It was a mafia move. And it was pretty awesome to see this overall. What a fantastic episode. We're going to break it all down for you. And this is a spoiler review episode, just to let you know. But let's introduce ourselves first. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer and a voiceover actor for Spooky Season. You can listen to all 10 episodes of Dream Sequence from Realm, Blumhouse, and iHeart Podcasts.
There you go. All right, Michael, I go to you first. Your overall thoughts on this episode, feelings, points of views, and analysis. Go ahead.
I mean, pretty disappointing. Not a lot of penguin in it.
It says penguin in the title. What the hell?
It was penguin in the title. He's only in it for like 5 minutes. I don't like this show. I'm out. No, it was great.
It's the Book of Boba Fett all over again.
No, this was absolutely fantastic. I mean, for a mid-season sort of, let's dive back in, let's really focus on Sofia Falcone. I mean, like, Kristen Milioti has been stealing almost every scene that she's been in this show anyway, so giving her an entire episode to just really dive in and understand this arc and fill in a lot of the backstory. It was really, really great. Took a lot of the things that we've been discussing over several weeks, like, was she the hangman? Was she not? Was this really Carmine Falcone? But also Oz's story that he told Victor about being a driver and his the person he was driving getting like pinned by the feds, and that's how Falcone really noticed him. Well, now we know that story wasn't exactly accurate, and how he really did rise up and how he was seen by Falcone. So this really did fill in a lot of the gaps of the Oz story as well. But in addition to being an amazing backstory, in addition to just being a great set piece to watch Kristen Milioti just like tear the walls off everything with her acting, literally tear the walls off actually, it also reset the entire stage for the show. This is no longer a show where Oz has to deal with how do I navigate the Falcone family, because by the end of this episode, there's very little Falcone family left to navigate. So the entire structure of where we're going for the back half of this season has drastically shifted. And I think really Sofia has risen up to be like, I don't really know what's going to happen between Sofia and Oz at this point. And also like, I'd be kind of down with whatever happened. If Oz didn't make it out of here and Sofia was the new boss in the next Batman movie, great. If Oz becomes the Penguin for real and takes care of Sofia Falcone, great. I am having such a good time with these characters that I don't even care who makes it out alive.
Well, R.I.P. Magpie. Shannon, your thoughts overall on this particular episode here before we dive into the specific sections?
I mean, this is a fantastic series. I mean, come Emmy and Golden Globe time, awards time, I think this one's going to be nominated for some statues. Kristen Milioti is an incredible performer, and getting to see the journey that Sofia goes on to kind of justify where she ends up. Not only is it just a powerhouse of acting, just the storytelling is fantastic. I mean, you get to see where their relationship started between Oz and Sofia, and all of these things that, even though amongst the Falcone family, and we will, I imagine, debate this strongly as we continue on amongst all of the Falcone family. Sofia comes out at the beginning, at least, like this is the least corrupted member of this family, but at the same time, she's not entirely innocent, and part of that is that. Well, I'm not going the direction. Basically, you see the moment where, had she maybe been a little nicer to Oz, things may not have turned out the way they turned out. So, I mean, I think that one, we're going to have a blast talking about it, but also it makes it such a relatable and human relationship to see if we had gone left and instead of going right, where would this whole thing have ended up? And not only is there no majority of the Falcone family leadership is gone, Sofia knows that Oz killed her brother.
Yeah.
So going forward, I mean, that the table is set. What we're going to be dining on, who knows? But yeah, this was a fantastic episode.
It'll be blood-soaked meat. I know that. And Michael, I think you said it best, setting the table, as Shannon just echoed here. I agree as well. Like, this was an incredible episode because of how it explored the complexities of Sofia Falcone. Yes, on one side, as Shannon said, she's the innocent, but if you believe that a daughter in her 20s doesn't know that her father is part of a criminal enterprise, there's an exchange between her and Alberto where he says, oh, well, father doesn't work, he doesn't work, and she gleefully accepts it. And what empire did she think she was taking over? Was it a catering empire, a construction empire? She had no idea he was a criminal. So there's these complexities throughout the episode that you're like, oh, wow, okay. But then you see what these men did to her. Her father, the doctor, the judge, the ADA, these men doing to a woman, destroying Oz. Yes. Sorry, Oz as well. Yes. Who is no saint himself. I see people trying to cheer for Oz. I'm like, what is wrong with you all? And this whole thing is she was turned into an even more diabolical criminal than she probably was going to end up being anyway, taking over the business from her father. So there's a lot to explore here that I think challenges us as a viewer, and that excited me as I was watching it even more a second time. There are moments you want to feel sympathy for her, but then she treats Oz, what are you doing inside? You're the help. You know, these little things, right? Oh, this woman chases her from behind to talk about the lunch. Oh, I have to go to another luncheon about mental health. Like, there's these little things that convey that she is privileged, she is elite, she was born into this wealth, she's pampered, she's spoiled. But then, of course, on the other side, what happens to her is so horrific. So you have to look at it in a much more complex and interesting way. And I think that's great writing, and that's fascinating from the creators Lauren LaFranc and the writer John McCutcheon in this particular episode. So I loved it to pieces. This is one that people should go back and rewatch multiple times to really get everything that's going on. But now, Michael, as you said, we've got Sofia versus Oz at the end of this episode. Very clearly, that is what we're in for in the next 4 episodes as we wrap up the first season here on this one. All right, let's get into the specifics. I'm going to try to, we're going to break this into 3s. Everything before the prison, everything in the prison, and everything outside after the prison. So that's how we're going to do it. I'm going to try to limit what I say, but we'll see. All right, we start with where we left off in the last episode, but from Oz and Sofia's point of view. Nadia outs Oz as having killed Alberto. Oz quickly turns on Sofia, telling Nadia that he did this all to help the Maronis. Victor crashes his car into Maroni henchman, which causes a stray bullet to hit Sofia. She calls Julian Rush and passes out from the shock. We flash back to 10 years ago now. Sofia speaks at a luncheon for her mother's foundation that provides aid for women battling mental health and illness. Oz is her driver here. What a great job by Colin Farrell here as her driver. Complete status change, so believable. You like feel sympathy for Oz, just the way he's talking to her. He clearly loves her and respects her. He escorts Sofia out as she complains about how many she's been to of these luncheons and dismisses the woman running after her. But as Oz gets the car, Sofia is approached by reporter Summer Gleason, who some of you remember from previous DC stuff, who informs her about a string of women who've all died of suicide by hanging like her mom. These were women killed at businesses owned by Carmine Falcone. Sofia tells her she doesn't talk to the press and leaves with Oz. Later at the Falcone estate, Sofia flashes back to the memory of discovering her mother's body as a child. She has dinner with Alberto and Carmine. Alberto gets a text after getting berated by Carmine and takes off. And then Carmine offers the business to Sofia. But Sofia follows this up by asking him questions about her mom, about his wife, and about whether she was expressing sadness or seeing anybody. And Carmine just dismisses it by saying she was good at hiding it. And of course, this is Mark Strong stepping in for John Turturro to play Carmine Falcone here. Later, Alberto and Sofia have an exchange about their father's business while Oz eavesdrops from the front of the car. Then she meets with Summer and hears the 411, but still rejects it, defending her father. Carmine calls her into his office at her birthday, and after berating Oz for being inside with the rest of the people as the help, she does go in and confronts Carmine about talking to the reporter, then dismisses her as being tired and she's a little bit out of her mind. And then she gets sent home with Oz. And as Oz tries to apologize to her, they are pulled over by the fine folks at the GCPD, and Sofia is arrested for the murder of Summer Gleason and the other women. Michael, a lot in this first section, certainly to dive into the relationship with Oz, the flashbacks, and everything that's going on here with Carmine and Alberto. Your thoughts on this whole opening and all these scenes?
Well, first off, I just loved that they opened the episode with those 2 lines from last week. It's like, I don't know where to go from here. I don't know how to trust you. And he's like, let me show you how. And then immediately following it up with him ditching her and leaving her to die at the hands of the Maronis. So I do love that we sort of retouched on this. This is about this relationship and how these two were trying to come together, and how you had this moment where it almost looked like the show was going to be like, let's have these two really find common ground. Yeah. And then when the rug is taken out from under him, Oz just totally turns. And then following that up by actually seeing that little bit of information with Nadia that we didn't get to see in last week's episode, where we actually find out that Sofia now has all the information. Oz was working with the Maronis. He walked into Blackgate. He made them promises. He says in front of Sofia that he's going to give them the bliss. And then Nadia says to Sofia, like, I thought you had him kill your brother, but now I realize you didn't even know. So, like, just right off the bat, a ton of information, a lot of the intrigue, a lot of Oz's tools of what he has to use. Because, I mean, Oz really works best when he can give a little bit of information here but twist it, a little information there and twist it. And this was like everything you had is off the table. You are kind of fucked as far as Sofia Falcone is concerned. And then Oz makes a break for it. She calls Julian, and then we get this flashback. A couple things about the flashback. One, I love, and this kind of ties into what I love later, I love that Sofia, when I'm sure Rocha will hate that I said, when she is innocent at the beginning,
and when is dressed in old? Sure.
Sofia, when she's at the luncheon for the charity, and she's wearing red. Red is, you would have thought that in a show like this, you would see her in a nice, lovely yellow because she's innocent Sofia. And then when you get to the end, when she does what she does, she'd be dressed in red. But the fact that they flipped this, I think, is really telling, as John implies, because it kind of says, you know, there already was this something danger lurking inside of her. I also think it's worth mentioning that what this episode does in 1 hour is what Todd Phillips was attempting to do with Joker 2 and failed miserably at. The fact hitting the strays. Well, the fact that there's been a lot of discussion online about Arthur Fleck didn't want to be the Joker and society made him the Joker, but he was an unwilling participant. And then we get to the end and people are like, well, that wasn't satisfying. And then people are like, well, you just didn't understand it because you're not intellectual like I am, like all the discourse on Joker 2. But with this, you have somebody who, for all intents and purposes, in the world of Gotham, in the world of most people are not black or white and there's a whole lot of gray, Sofia is a lot closer to the innocent side of things. And we watch as this character is used by men, abused by men, put into a situation where she is turned into a tabloid-esque killer against her will, and how that like breaks her down as a person. And we watch this person who was a relatively innocent person go down this road because of what Gotham does to her. And I think I was watching it halfway through, I was like, well, maybe Todd Phillips away in his ranch is taking notes at this episode for the next movie that he does. But yeah, the whole relationship between her and Oz is really interesting because to John's point again, we do see that she likes Oz. Like when it's just the two of them talking and shooting the shit, there is this kind of camaraderie. Like they both kind of get each other. Sofia feels like she's a little bit on the outside because she's a woman. Oz is on the outside because he's a low-level driver. He's got his, his physical ailments. People kind of look down on him. And we see that in the scene with Alberto later, where Alberto really casually refers to him as the Penguin. And she tells Alberto not to call him that. I mean, that one little line gives you a lot of information about who she is. Now, when she's threatened and upset, she takes that back later for sure, just like Oz does when he is threatened. But I thought that was really interesting. I love watching Mark Strong do a John Turturro impression, apparently. Not something I thought I needed on my Batman bingo card, but man, Mark Strong walked in as a 10 years younger Carmine Falcone, and I was like, yeah, I buy it. I buy it. If I squint my eyes a little bit, sure, it's Turturro to me. Like he did a really nice job. But the danger that he has, the power that he has in just commanding that room. And I've seen some other people talking about this online, and this really does track with Carmine Falcone from the comics. He doesn't really love his kids unless his kids are useful. Like he clearly is very dismissive of Alberto because he thinks Alberto's a fuck up, and he really does think Sofia's got what it takes. But boy, does that churn quickly as soon as he is threatened by what she knows, and how he very quickly is like, well, fuck her. Really quickly, because John touched on it, I think incorrectly. She doesn't berate Oz when he's inside the house for the birthday party. Oh my God. She is surprised. She is. If you go back and watch that scene, because I watched it twice. She doesn't berate him. She is surprised because he is a driver. It would be as weird as when Oz was at the house after Alberto's funeral if Victor had just walked in. Like, it's bizarre for the driver to walk in. So she is surprised because Oz doesn't belong in there. And then she comments on his jacket, which is important because Oz has now stepped up. Like, she's suspicious. She's surprised he's in the house. What are you doing here? And then she's like, is that a new jacket? And he's like, oh, yeah. And then she turns back and looks at him as soon as she's going to see her dad. And that's where she starts to suspect. Like, it's not that there are other moments where she's absolutely dismissive of him. This is a surprise because this is where Oz, and she's about to find this out, Oz has now stepped up. He sold her out to Carmine. He said, your daughter's talking to a reporter, and he's now dressed nicer because he's now on his way up, because Carmine is like, thank you, did me this favor. Oz, I always thought you were a loyal guy, and Oz is on his way up. So I think if you watch that moment, I don't know that that's berating. I don't know that moment is there to show class where other moments are. I think that is an honest surprise on her part. I also think what's interesting, particularly in the scene with Oz and Sofia right before she gets arrested, is of all of the lies that Oz tells and all of the things that Oz is dishonest or twists a little bit, I do think he's honestly surprised that Carmine Falcone sends his daughter to Arkham Asylum.
Yes, I agree with that.
And arguably, although I think Oz does everything with his own self-interest at heart.
Sure.
Hey, Carmine, I just want you to know your daughter was talking to a reporter. I don't know what she was saying, but I think you should know. Like, it's not 100% out of bounds what he does. When he says, I was looking out for you, and she says, if you were really looking out for me, you would have told me. She's right. But also, she did sort of go talk to a reporter out of school, which in the world of their family is a big no-no. So it's like, I don't know that Oz... The way it was implied, you really felt like Oz went out of his way to fuck Sofia over.
Right.
And when you look at what really happened, it's a very murky area, which I think makes it much more interesting. But Oz's shock when the police show up and take her away and pin all of those murders, particularly Summer Gleason, where Oz is very clear that, like, that's obviously untrue. And then the cop, who is also in the Batman, the one who talks to him, refers to him as the Penguin. And, hey, Penguin, be smart. Keep your mouth shut. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, it's very clear. So I do think, as
Kinsey.
far as, like, even though Oz, Kinsey, even though Oz is not in this episode a lot, the bits between him and Sofia that we get that fill in the gaps of this relationship, I think are really, really well done.
Agreed. Good point about the jacket, Mike. I hadn't clocked that as a kind of commentary, but isn't that standard Oz to go to make a decision and go an extra step and maybe get himself caught by being stupid and aggressive and overzealous, and then not knowing turning in Sofia could lead to her being sent to Arkham. He just did it for himself, not knowing what the consequences were going to be. So that's a great point.
And it's just really quickly on that front, because I do think look, the Penguin, not Matt Reeves' Penguin, but the Penguin is a dude who wears a monocle and a top hat and has weird umbrellas. Like he's a little ostentatious. And the fact that as we've sort of pulled back and recontextualized that in the Matt Reeves universe, Oz's apartment in Sofia's eyes is very tacky.
Yeah.
He's not a fancy guy. He's a guy who comes from low-level means, who likes a plum car. He has like a white suit that he's wearing in the last episode. Like there's just everything he wears is a little bit over the top for his means and for where he's at, and a little bit tacky and a little bit this. And this is the guy that could potentially take over crime in Gotham and say, you know what? I'm going to bring monocles back.
Yeah. And umbrellas. Garish. Shannon, your thoughts on these first few scenes here before we get to what happens to Sofia in the prison?
Again, fantastic. The moment at the beginning where Shora Agadashi basically outs him, saying that like, oh, I thought this was the reason. I thought, you had him kill your brother so you could take his place. That moment where Kristen Milioti, like you see in her face, this motherfucker did it to me again. Like it is so awesome. And the way, like the brilliant way that they handled the conclusion of last week's episode, when Vic says, are we not going to get Sofia? And he says, leave her. Now you know why, because that bridge is burned. And because we didn't have that bit of information at the end of last week's episode. It's like, boy, Oz is a piece of shit. At this stage, it's like, he's a piece of shit. He probably made the right decision. The stark contrast between as she gets on the phone with Julian Rush, who again, I'm not a big Theo Rossi fan. I feel like he is the weak link in this episode. But as she gets on the phone,
did you watch Summer Gleason? Did you watch Summer Gleason? Anyway, go ahead.
Summer Gleason, she was good.
Please, you guys are insane. She was way below.
To all the Summer Gleason fans out there, to all three of you, I think you had justice. You got Summer Gleason in live action. You're good to go.
I love the character.
The stark contrast as she is, having that panic attack as she gets on the phone with Julian, between this dark, dank, wet world where she finds herself in now, to this, we flash back 10 years to this opulent, elegant, very white, it's just like, oh my gosh, this is where you used to operate. Right. This is where you started, and this is where you have ended up. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, that just aesthetically, it's just really, really striking. I love the little things that they do with Colin Farrell's makeup, how he's got more hair. He doesn't have the gold teeth. I mean, it's all these little things that they've added. And you definitely do. We need an Oz who is of a lower status. I mean, there is sort of he kind of shuffles around on the outside. And the way that, can I get you a cigarette? You probably want to take the edge off. He's just so obsequious at this point because that's what he has to be. And you look at especially when she says, at least you have a dick, you can get a promotion. And the idea that I think she is aware, like, of the Falcone kids, you got the right one. Like, you could have been Alberto's driver and your life would not be as nice as it is right now. I mean, again, very, very nice dynamic between Carmine and the two kids. I do agree, like, man, it would have been great to have Turturro back. I mean, Turturro was one of those unexpected joys from the Batman that you didn't go into the Batman expecting, like, I'm really down for a great John Turturro performance. But it's like, he was so good. I mean, he's so captivating. But as Vogel already said, Mark Strong, if you can't have John Turturro, Mark Strong as your 10 years younger option is a really strong card. I mean, again, he's the DC MVP that Mark Strong is, from Sinestro to the bad guy from Shazam, Savannah, to this. I mean, he is the guy that you call when your DC project needs a strong performer.
James Gunn needs to be listening. James Gunn needs to be listening to us. Be like, you better find something real good for him because he has put in the work on something
real
like
good.
Two real stinkers where he was arguably one of the better parts of, and then coming in to just like substitute for Turturro. It's like, man, you better make this guy someone big.
Picked up the baton and ran.
Yeah, it's like the manager is going, Strong, you're up. You're up. Get through. You're up, Strong. Yeah.
But I do agree with you, Johnny, that Sofia, she has a sense. Like, again, as Hollywood has led us to believe, all successful organized crime enterprises have their connections to legitimate businesses. And that is what Sofia is going to be taking over on the surface, even though, yes, she will also have her finger in the less
savory.
Yeah, the less salient aspects of the family as well. The moment where she does meet with Summer Gleason after she's talked with her dad about, I've been thinking about Mom a lot. Were there any warning signs? Not talking about the fact that she did see scratches on his hand this early, which they make a very deliberate point of that as he's kind of hugging young Sofia when she finds her mom.
Yeah.
As she gets in the car, this is the moment I'm talking about. This is where she does berate him. Yeah. Oz does try to go to her and say, like, hey, you're talking to a reporter, your father. And she says, I don't care what you think, Oz. No one cares what you think. That is the moment where where Oz makes that decision of like, okay, and is this from loyalty? Is this from his desire to move up? Does he see an opportunity? I think it's probably a little bit of both. But the moment where she then meets up with her cousin, Carla, and you see this nice congenial relationship they have. Oh, let's talk about Luca's new conquest that he got from Portugal, Portugal.com. And I mean, I'm going to straddle the line between Johnny and Mikey here. When she sees Oz and she's like, Oz, what are you doing here? Because he's not supposed to be there.
He's not supposed to be in the house.
No, he's not supposed to be there.
Servants' quarters are downstairs. Yeah.
And like she sees the jacket. She does make a comment on the jacket. Part of it is like, hey, man, it was laced with two things. Part of it's like, good for you. You wanted that jacket. You went out and got that jacket. Good for you. Also, that jacket is chrome and has no business being anywhere near someplace that we're having a party. But you can still see he still got that low status shuffle that he does. Like, oh, yeah, you like it? You can tell that he is the definition of new money that doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
It's like it is tacky. It is kind of garish. But the moment that she and Mark Strong have that scene where she says, I saw scratches on your hands. I mean, you can see the calculations behind his fashion tent lenses of, oh no, I'm going to have to do this to my daughter. Okay, well, I still got another one, so I guess we're okay. The car ride home when she says like, Oz, why didn't you should have came to me. I so wish he would have said I did. But the moment that Kenzie pulls her out of the car, like I think Oz's outrage is 100% honest. It is absolutely authentic. Like, what are you doing? Like, he never in a million years thought Carmine's going to have the cops come get us, much less go to Arkham. So yes, this whole setup was outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely agree. All right, let's move on to the second section. Move on to the prison here. Sofia is visited by her lawyer, and Alberto will show her the newspapers that have dubbed her the hangman and reveal that Carmine has framed her, with the judge going along with it, with the ADA's request to send her to Arkham. Sofia is told that she will be undergoing a psychological evaluation. Then we see a sequence of her being taken to Arkham right in front of her brother. Strip search. She's put under the care of Dr. Ventress, which might be a callback to a DC character from Arkham for you deep cut DC fans. And we meet Julian Rush, who apparently Shannon hates, and is placed in mandatory isolation. After she's locked up in her cell, she meets Magpie. Hey, another live action Magpie. Sees her take Bliss at the mess hall before Abby, an unchained patient, attacks her. Hours later, she wakes up bruised and battered. Julian Rush is there to ask her about her therapy after her mom died. She is led back to the mess hall where Abby is brought out in chains. Sofia is handed a fork and freed to attack her, but doesn't do it. Abby takes the fork from her, stabs herself in the neck multiple times after telling Sofia to end it. This leads Sofia to be subjected to a montage of shock therapy, which is some of the most uncomfortable stuff I've seen since One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. She slowly loses her grip on reality as Julian Rush starts to sympathize with her. Then Sofia receives a visit from a heartbroken Alberto who tells her 6 months later, who says that there will be no trial, which ends up breaking her. And in the mess hall, after Magpie is talking to her about things, she absolutely snaps and kills her right in front of Dr. Ventress. So, Shannon, your thoughts on everything that happened in this whole sequence leading to her just before she gets out?
Again, Miliotti's performance, the slow realization of what her dad has done, and that there is nothing that she nor Alberto can do. I mean, again, when you look at the first episode of the series where we briefly meet Alberto before Oz, feeds him a bunch of bullets, it's like, what a little cock, this piece of shit. But then you see how he is with his sister, and it's like, okay, man, I'm starting to feel a little bit of sympathy for you. You are, a screw up, but at the same time, you love your sister. And the way that you're treating Oz in the first episode starts to make a little more sense because undoubtedly, you know what went down.
Right.
Oz is the reason your sister is in Arkham. So him being a dick starts to make a little more sense. As she is admitted to Arkham, the things that she has to go through where she's, getting that cold shower, the scrub, the seculum that they use to make sure she's not hiding anything in parts. Absolutely just
vagina. It's a vagina.
Oh boy.
Parts. We're just going to say parts. But then, I mean, she's being led into her cell, like she makes eye contact with, the first inmate that we really get a good look at is Abby, and this performer, wonderful, just has that gait, that slightly, it's like, oh, you got crazy person walk.
Sid Skidmore is her name. Sid Skidmore. So, yeah.
Sid Skidmore, which that name lines up perfectly. But the whole thing is just so sad. So it's like, oh my gosh, because your dad is this bad guy and you did not appreciate how bad he actually was until his crosshairs landed on you. I mean, the guy playing Ventress, I thought was fantastic. I mean, just this icy, gaslighting demeanor of like, oh no, you're confused. The character of Rush, where I struggle with it is like, Theo Rossi has a very distrustful face to me. Like he just has kind of like he's a rat, like he's a squealer. We're supposed to kind of be like, oh, you might be a good guy, but you also have this pencil thin stash, what I don't think anyone of any integrity ever has. But also he just seems kind of slimy to me, and that's why I'm like, these two don't fit together. Even during the electroshock therapy where he asks Ventress, what if she's telling the truth? Even that doesn't work because it's like these two, these are the only puzzle pieces in this entire show, which I have loved. These are the only ones that don't line up for me. Meeting Magpie, I mean, this is Matt Reeves' Batman, the Batman's Arkham, that you have this patient who on the surface is being very friendly, but you can hear all of the insanity behind this woman's voice. Everyone is just so scary inside there. And you see the level that she is pushed to, where she's not able to defend herself against Sid Skidmore. But then when she gets to the point that Alberto comes to her and says, like, you're not getting out. And that decision that she makes, that she ends up killing Magpie at the same time as she's peeling going into her head and peeling the paint off of her cell's walls. And you see that, the wallpaper from her parents' house. I mean, again, this was just so well done. And I would have to imagine that Kristen Milioti is going to be nominated for some awards off of this.
Yeah, agreed 100%. Michael, your thoughts on everything that went down here from her meeting with Alberto and her lawyer, and then discovering that she's going to be in this thing for 6 months with no visitation, Ventress, Julian Rush, the shock therapy, and then eventually what happens to her with Abby and with Magpie.
I think one of the things that really struck me in this episode is that of all of the iconic locations in comic books, I mean, from like the Justice League Watchtower to Metropolis to the Fantastic Four Baxter Built, like whatever it is, something about Arkham Asylum just elicits such a visceral reaction in every version of Arkham Asylum, from Batman the animated series to any version we've ever seen of it. There is something about that place. It is a house of horrors. It is a haunted mansion. It's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest amped up to 15. Like there's just something about it that really just elicits this very, very deep rooted feelings of like fear and insecurity and anxiety. And like, I think they just nailed it with this episode. I mean, from the moment that she gets taken in and you go through that entire sequence of being scrubbed down and just treated like an animal, it really just makes Arkham the worst place you could possibly imagine. And I think one of the other reasons that it works so well is that the Kristen Milioti, the Sofia Falcone that we saw in the first third of this episode is so different from the Sofia Falcone that we've seen up to this point. Yeah. And I think last week, as we did the review, we talked about every time she's in the room with anybody, like when she's in Oz's apartment with Victor, she's like a predator sizing you up. Like you're just intensely insecure. But we kept saying, because you're in the room with a psycho, where you're in the room with a sociopath, you're in the room with the hangman killer. So to see a Sofia Falcone in this episode before she was that, and then get to this middle chunk of the episode and just watch how being in Arkham Asylum turns you into a monster. And that they really sold that really, really well. I also don't think Theo Rossi's great, but I will disagree with Shannon that I don't think we're supposed to think he's a good guy. The very first scene we see with him in this series is him holding her very inappropriately for a therapist. So the whole like, you're kind of a weasel, I don't really trust you. I think that's what you were buying when you cast him. I don't disagree that I don't think he's the strongest piece of the Penguin puzzle here, but I think he does what he's supposed to do just fine. I really do love, I think, the violence of the scene where Abby attacks her, followed by the here's a fork, get your revenge. Aside from showing that Arkham is fucked up, is to really show you that even at this point, Sofia Falcone is not a killer. Like she still has that tiny ray of hope of, I can do this for 6 months. I am being subjected to shock therapy. I am in the worst possible place, but I am in the worst possible place for 6 months, and I am not going to become a monster. And I think that's really, really important, because then when she does find out from Alberto that there's no hope, like when he's like, the judge signed a thing, it is, oh, my dad wants me gone and wants to never hear from me again because I know the truth about what he really is. And it's when she loses every ounce of hope that she gives in and becomes the monster, when she kills Magpie. And I think like having those two things in this middle chunk of the episode, it really shows that this wasn't someone who, she was always kind of a monster. You just needed that little bit of a push to push her over the edge. She didn't need a little bit of a push. She actually, all arguments about you live in a crime family, how much do you know about what your dad does aside, she was not a murderer. Like she was not a killer. Not a murderer. And and Carmine Falcone turned her into this. And Johnny Vitti and Luca and everybody that wrote those letters saying, yep, she was always a little bit crazy, she loved to kill animals, like they reap what they sow at the end of this episode, because they took someone who was arguably one of the more innocent members of that family, not completely innocent, but one of the more innocent members, and turned her into the tool of their demise.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating exploration. I don't want to, you guys said it really well. So all I can say is that this is when you watch an actor really come out and deliver a performance in a widely watched show, you kind of feel so happy for them. And watching Christina, some that I've watched since 30 Rock and whatever, watching her like really kind of show that she can do a role like this, I think just announces her to all these casting directors, to all these directors and producers, that this is a woman of immense talent and that you can use her in a comedy, you can use her in a drama and everything in between, and she will deliver. So hopefully this is the step forward for her, because I was watching her on some talk show. She was talking about how the first she did a Sopranos episode where she has like 4 lines. Steve Buscemi directed the episode, and then after that she didn't work for a long time, and she worked at a coffee shop in between. Buscemi would come into the coffee shop and constantly check on her to see what her status of her career is. So like those are those things, like people know talent when they see it, and it doesn't mean you're always going to get the opportunity. So the fact that she's seizing on them now all these years later, it's great to see in the performance. And I think a lot when you're an actor and you're watching someone and the micro emotions and the micro moments that they're living in, the moment to moment existence, Shannon, you said it best, her slow realization of what's happening. And then Michael, you hit it on it too. When she finally realizes there is no other option for her, then she gives into this impulse to destroy Magpie, who's the one person who's trying to be friends with her, even though she's an unstable person. She has shown no aggressiveness towards her in any way, shape, or form. She had a right to kill Abby more than she had a right to kill Magpie, but she kills Magpie as a way of like reaffirming her strength by destroying something who's maybe a little less weaker than her. So we see that in her, and so it's a change for sure, and it's a fascinating exploration to watch when you're watching these scenes.
And it's also to go from the scene with Dr. Rush where she's like, my father framed me, which is true, and he's like, ugh, and she's like, you think I'm paranoid. You think I'm paranoid and you don't believe me. To go to Magpie, who's like, hey, now we can be friends, and she's like, did you talk about me? Did you? So like you again, in addition to seeing someone who went from being like I am not a killer to I'm gonna smash Magpie's face in, you also saw someone who was very like, this is the truth, this is honest, no, I am not a paranoid person, to now I'm paranoid, I don't trust anybody. So like just across the board, in this middle chunk, to every single bit that was in here was here is who she was pre this Arkham Asylum, and here's who she is now, and you can literally in this episode watch every single piece of this and watch how she fell apart.
Still not paranoid enough to not trust Penguin, unfortunately. So,
which only speaks to how good Oz is.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. No one's better than Oz. All right, let's go back to the present day. Sofia awakens in Julian's office. This is from what we saw earlier in the episode, him having called her, or her having called him. She is given food, a change of clothes. She opens up to Julian that she was an idiot to trust Oz. Every fiber in her being knew that Oz was lying. And she should have killed him when she had the chance. Julian then says, hey, why don't you go to Italy? Have a fresh start, do whatever. And she turns it around on him and says, yeah, well, you'd like that, wouldn't you? And questions him about how, you lied to me, you gaslit me for 10 years, and says that, yeah, I do need a fresh start after seeing his pills in his dresser, which is or in his office rather, which he's clearly taking to deal with the guilt of what he's done. She goes to the Falcone estate, walks in dressed, as Michael said, in a bright yellow dress, coming in like sunlight almost, sits down, and everybody stops, like the music stops. She walks right in, plops herself down, starts to eat. Johnny Vitti wants to know what she's doing there. Luca delivers a toast. Halfway through the toast, she interrupts and talks about how, this is last time we've been together was my father's birthday party. Then she berates everybody for having written those letters to the judge, saying she was mentally ill, and then said that Alberto was the only one that tried to help her. And then she says she's going to leave and start a new life. Then later on, we see her smoking a cigarette, and then she wakes up and leads Carla Vitti's daughter, Gia, there, played by Kenzie Gray, to the greenhouse. Gives her applies her with chocolate cake, then tells her to lie down there and go to sleep there like she and Alberto did, thinking the place was a jungle. She wakes up the next day, tells Gia to stay asleep, walks into the house, and we see that she has turned the gas on, essentially killed everybody in the house, but left Johnny Vitti alive to go forward with the plans here, and Gia. So Johnny and Gia survive, and Gia in the comics will eventually become the leader of the Gotham underworld down the road. So Michael, your thoughts on how Sofia enacts revenge here on the entire family, and essentially repeats the trauma, killing another girl's mom just as her mom was killed, and maybe sending her down the path of criminal enterprise as well, even though she said she's not going to commit her. So what are your thoughts on this?
But she gave G a cake, and that makes it all okay.
A quarter piece, no less.
A quarter piece. I thought of you, Johnny.
A corner piece.
Hey, that's the only piece of cake I eat is a quarter piece.
Again, to Shannon's point, I don't think that that Julian Rush is the most interesting character in the show. But so this whole scene that plays out here, you know, not the elect.
Julian is a very seasoned actor. I want to defend him just a little bit here. I mean, he's Sons of Anarchy. This guy is a very seasoned actor that Shannon is taking to task. But go ahead.
You know, it's not my kind of seasoning. But I mean, everything here plays out fine. What I do, and I like that the episode still left some gaps in. Like, we know that he quit. We know that he was on the outside, right, and that he helped Alberto get Sofia out of Arkham. And we know that at some point Sofia told Alberto about Bliss, said, hey, there's these drugs in here and I got a plan. So like there is a lot of like the machinations that I don't think are super important to the show. So I kind of like that we sort of stopped. We stopped where Arkham turned her into a monster, and like that's as much information as we needed, and now let's catch back up. So I like that we didn't go through and see everything, but there is still some stuff that I find interesting that I would love to know. And then the way that she says is it rehabilitated, when she's like, you know, the way that you reformed me, rehabilitated me, you're like, oh, he did some shit. Like this was not oof. Like there's a bunch of stuff that is implied there that I'm like, yeah, it's better. We saw enough in Arkham. I don't need to see any more. It was already a house of horrors. I do wonder what's going to happen to him. I don't think he makes it. Out of this season run. But I really just love from the moment that she walks into that room in that yellow dress. Again, the yellow dress is appropriate. Like she, at this point, she's been struggling so much. Like she was like this, again, mostly innocent member of this family, living this life. Her dad was like, you're the best, you're going to take over. Things were looking good. This whole thing happened to her. And the Sofia Falcone that we've seen up to this point, as much as she is a stronger character, she is very unsure of herself. She's very unsure of her footing in the family. She doesn't love how everyone looks at her. Like there's a lot going on about her knowing that she's been saddled with this hangman title that she knows is false, but everyone is going to treat her that way, and she's very frustrated by that. And when she walks in that yellow dress, that is an acceptance of, this is my life now, this is who I am, and I give no fucks. So the yellow dress is appropriate. And as much as we had all of these amazing Arkham scenes and all this stuff happen, I don't think anything in the entire episode comes close to being as good as that camera being on her when she gives that toast.
Oof.
I think that I was like, I'm sort of leaning back. I'm watching the show. Maybe I checked my phone a couple times. When she got up to give that toast, I like leaned in. I was in it. I was like, this is great. There is also something about Michael Kelly as an actor that just, every time he makes a face, you just want to punch him in the like, you just want to punch him. He has a face that is meant to, like, I don't like your face. He always has this, like, what the fuck's going on? Who the fuck do you think you are? And I'm like, you need to be punched so badly. So I thought the whole speech was great. And then I do love the double, like, she says to the family, like, so after this, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm starting my new life. And every one of those fuckers were like, all right, I got to put up with this crazy bitch at dinner, but I guess she's getting on the plane tomorrow, so it'll be great, and it's business as usual. And they have no idea what she really means. And I also love that when she gives Gia that cake and says, let's go to the greenhouse, I think almost everyone was like, she gonna hang that girl.
Oh,
she gonna hang. She is gonna. Are they HBO Max? You gonna let her hang this girl? She gonna kill the girl. Oh, here we go. Hangman for real. Like, I was so on edge when they're in the greenhouse. And then when she was like, when Gia was like, am I going to have to fight monsters? And she was like, oh, I'm going to make sure you never have to fight monsters. She's going to kill her. She's going to kill her. So I was actually relieved when she got up and walked out. But yeah, the fact that she killed absolutely everyone. And the little skips that she does as she's like setting everything back up, opening the windows to air everything out now that everybody's dead. Like the whole bit was so great. And there's just this lightness to her. And then the Johnny Vitti bit, a nice twist, because I think in the comics, Johnny Vitti is the first person that she kills as the Hangman in Dark Victory. I think Dark Victory, that he's the first one to die. So I was ready. And like just the whole way they've set him up as such a punchable person, I was like, all right, now we get to see her kill Johnny Vitti. But she still needs Johnny Vitti for the deal with the Triad to be selling the bliss. So like the fact that she's like, I killed everyone. And so now it's like, given what she did by the end of this episode, whatever she's got planned is what she's got planned. Johnny Vitti's options have become severely limited at this point, so he's fucked. And Oz's options have become severely limited at this point. Like, the Maronis have turned on him. Like, they're like, fuck you. Sofia knows the truth about him. Johnny Vitti's always hated him. Truly, he's got his hookers and he's got Victor. And that's all he's got. So, as we get into this last chunk of episodes for the show... I really appreciate the show's pace.
Yeah,
you know, there's other shows where this would have been an entire flashback episode, and it wouldn't have been till the end of the next episode where she killed the family, and then we would have had this. So the fact that this episode did the work of here's a flashback, here's her life in Arkham, but also let's catch up to all this stuff and kill the whole Falcone family. It's like it's just like with Agatha revealing Wiccan way earlier than we thought. Like both of these shows are moving much faster. So as we go into this last chunk, as opposed to going, they got a lot to do, we're in like the Wild West and we don't know what's going to happen, which is awesome.
Yeah. Lauren LaFranc, again, much love for her show running this season and doing an incredible job here with this stuff. Shannon, your thoughts on everything that happens here with Sofia exacting her revenge on her family?
So first, there's a movie called Emily the Criminal with Aubrey Plaza that Theo Rossi is in, and I think Theo Rossi does a great job in Emily the Criminal. So I don't think as a performer, he's worthless. Like I just think that this was not I thought this was not the best casting for this particular performer. That being said, this scene as well, without Kristen Milioti, I don't think the scene works. But I question whether or not we'll actually see him again, because I feel like as she wakes up in his office, she realizes you've been doping yourself to deal with the fact that you knew I was right this whole time. To me, she doesn't have any more panic attacks. I think she has come out the other side. I think that snap at him, she's like, I'm good, pal. I'll see you later. I'm not going to kill you because I got way more people to kill first.
Yeah.
But I don't need you anymore. Having her walk in during that dinner, again, she is transformed. I mean, you look, her makeup's a little different. Her hair is a little different. The connection that she does have with Gia as she's, eating that meatball and kind of, squirts it out through her teeth. Awesome. Like you can see like, hey, here's an innocent. Here's someone that I will not do anything to. Everyone else here is fair game. Every time that Michael Kelly, I agree when I think about, I hadn't thought about him having a punchable face, but now that Vogel used that term, I'm like, Michael Kelly, Wyatt Russell from Marvel. I'm like, ooh, I don't know who's got the more punchable face here. But every time Michael Kelly says like Sofia, and then she looks at him like, really, kitten? We gonna do this right now? Like the lady that I caught you naked with is 4 seats down, and like the amount of nonverbal acting that is done in that moment is outstanding. But again, just a testament to her performance, how they go tight on her. Like they don't really move. Like every once in a while they'll cut to the table, but you just see all the work that Kristen Milioti is doing right here, just with the delivery of the lines and the expressions on her face. And sometimes the expression isn't anything, and that's what you probably needed in that moment. This is literally, as she is saying, I'm going to start my new life. This is her saying bye, like not in the way they're expecting, but this is literally farewell. I know what you all did. The only person who tried to help me was Alberto. I had the same thought as Vogel for a moment. I'm like, she going to go kill that kid? But then as they're hanging out in the greenhouse, I'm like, why did she feel the need to separate this kid? And then it's like, that's right. She opened the window when she was smoking a cigarette. Oh, okay. The justice that she feels has been distributed in that moment. As Vogel already said, that kind of skipping down the hall until she gets to Johnny Vidi's room. Just outstanding. I mean, when you get the best villains are the ones that think they're right. And she 100% thinks that everything she's done was justified and correct.
Yeah. So my only thing, because you guys said it really well, is, again, this is another example of family generational trauma being passed on, right? Carmine is a horrible father. Penguin's mother is a horrible mother. And we see what these two things lead to for both of these people. He takes on Victor. She takes on Gia. I love how you two still think she's going to have some innocent. What's wrong with you two? She's absolutely going to corrupt Gia to pieces, just as Penguin is trying to corrupt Victor to pieces. This is not I'm going to save some young girl from my experience. That's not how it fucking works with generational trauma. She's absolutely going to corrupt Gia from the beginning and repeat the patterns, because unfortunately that's what happens, because she didn't do therapy and got better. She got therapy and embraced herself to kill her entire fucking family. So, I mean, it's just like this kind of thing that I think passes on. So we'll see down the road what it all leads to, because I hope there's a season 2 for this. There probably won't be, but I hope there's a season 2 maybe down the road, because I want to see this progress. And as she ages, I want to see Gia confront her about her killing her mom and whatever, because all she did was write a letter against Sofia, but we don't know, just as we did with Alberto, that Carmine didn't say to her, write the letter or Gia's dead tomorrow. Like, there's very strong possibilities Carmine forced all of them to write the letter. And I don't know if you know this, but when she's talking about the letters, they all looked at Johnny, and Johnny looked really guilty, as if maybe Johnny wrote all the letters and just had them all sign it. So there's still more to discover, I think, within this that is going to be fascinating to explore once we get to that point. So yeah, this is just
what else there is to explore. They're all dead.
Well, why? Well, I think there's more to explore. You know, I mean, Alberto was dead, and we saw him again and changed our points of view on Alberto in this episode. So
there's no those motherfuckers. Yeah, sure. Carmine told them, "Hey, you got to write these letters," but they did. Yeah, they did what Carmine said. They sold Sofia out. She killed him. The end. Story over.
I kind of feel like it was a very extreme decision to make, because I mean, if their lives were on the line, they did what they had to do to survive and save their daughter. I mean, that's pretty hard. That's pretty, wow. Who is really the hangman of the Geek Buddies? I don't know. It sounds like Michael right now. Jesus. All right, well, let's wrap it up there. Thank you all so much. That's our spoiler review for episode 4, Centani of The Penguin. Thanks for watching or listening to us. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies, on Instagram @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram @Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, watch out, he might hang you. It's @MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, let's revisit some stuff from the past. It doesn't matter going forward. It's @The Rocha Says.
Ain't that the truth, Michael?
Look, you smash that like button below, or else. You leave some comments below, or else. Let us know what you thought. Is there more to know with the Falcone saga, or are they all dead and they deserved it? Let us know in the comments below. If you're listening to this on a podcast, go ahead and leave us some stars and some comments so we'll go up in the rankings and more people can find us. And as always, the best thing that you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We love you. We'll talk to you next time with another brand new spoiler review on the Geek Bites, brought to you by the
Geek.
Please.